Greetings, good morning, hello, welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. I truly am grateful. That is not just an opening line, although that does help set the tone for everything. I am really grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that I'm here. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Starseed Ministry, usually streaming on Mondays, but yesterday here in the United States was Memorial Day, so I took the day off from working as well and gathered with the family. We also had a new moon yesterday morning, so I actually started my Monday putting seeds and plants in the actual ground. And we're going to talk about this new moon today. I have a reading that I'm going to share with everyone, and some space weather and all of that good stuff to kind of, draw all the pieces together. But how are you? How was your weekend? How are you feeling? Are you feeling ready to rise to the occasion? Because I feel like that this new moon had a very palpable, in terms of a material, physical sensation aligned with it. I don't know about you, but I definitely felt actual physical anxiety in my body at the roughly around the new moon, which was yesterday morning. Eastern Standard Time, roughly about 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So looking at 4:30 a.m. On the west coast of the U.S. and 11:30 Universal Time with this new moon in Gemini. But I definitely felt it. So I'm curious how people are feeling. I know sleep has still been a struggle for many people. And it seems like now that something has clicked into place. And I've heard it explained in a number of different ways from a number of different people that have their own perspective in the way that they share information or teach or whatever they do. Or are a reader, a contactee, whatever. And it does appear that the commitment that is made with Gemini, and especially with this new moon in conjunction with Aldebaran and the Hyades star cluster and everything that surrounds that, there feels to be a distinct commitment to a definitive process, and the upside to it is opening up new possibilities, new lands, pioneering in new directions in a lot of ways, but also to the inevitable contrast to that, which is going to be the difficulty of releasing ourselves from the ghosts of our past, right? So it's the reading that I did this morning was just fraught with a lot of challenge still. And, when I did the reading first off this morning, I was just like, wow, this is really, really difficult, because everybody is kind of sitting with many of these things in different realms of reality. So for example, in terms of my everyday outward reality, it's pretty mundane. There have been family health issues that have raised a lot of stress, but a lot of what I personally am experiencing is happening in the woo, in the astral realms, in my own Akash, in the collective. I had some very unsettling dreams the last 2 nights that seem to have a lot to do with just facing some really hard things, not necessarily about myself. Of course, that's always wrapped up into our journey as a soul, but also being able to stand in the face of and hold space in a lot of ways for other people's experiences that are part of the healing process. So when I did this reading, as you're going to see, it's like, whoa, this is pretty intense. We're the nosedive that we're taking in terms of all of our own development, and collectively as well with this new moon in Gemini. It's definitely going to come with a lot of people who aren't necessarily ready to master and I'm not saying anybody is or isn't, but we're all going to go through some difficulty, whatever it is, around this commitment, right? You commit to a course of action, failure or success, and you ride it all the way out. And rising to the occasion is accepting that and being very aware and in some ways objective. Can you be the subjective experiencer and the objective observer at the same time? And I think it's if you can only go one way or the other, it's It's going to be a very difficult ride. So when I was doing this reading and afterwards and just kind of like reflecting on it, how difficult this is, and what I see, I was just like, I wonder, I really do, like, how is this going to unfold? Because this seems pretty intense. And, well, I mean, within 2 hours less of my partner going to work, he came back home. He had an injury where he tweaked his back, and he's like, I'm not going to push it. But also somebody that he worked with, his parents' home, which was the home this person grew up in, burned down last night. So I was just like, oh, I see how it's going to be now. In terms of this course of action is put into place now. The pattern of meaning has been set. The template, I've heard someone else say the template's been set. I really do feel that. And this sense of there's no bypassing this situation. Everybody in their own way is going to go through their own cleansing, whether it be at a subconscious level, whether it be at a material level, whether it be in their own bodies and their healing process. It's part of moving forward now is we've initiated in some ways this nosedive, which we'll get into actually with the Catalyst Classroom. So I'm going to share a flyer that I have for this particular event. So the Catalyst Classroom is a bi-monthly live Zoom call for subscribers through Subscribestar. It's in the description box if you're interested in it. And this week's Catalyst Classroom is going to be, if I can find the flyer that I made for it, amongst everything else, here we go, we're going to be touching on this new moon in particular when it comes to ancient mythologies and, like it says here, starseed lineages. So this new moon was in conjunction with Aldebaran. I did the Gemini forecast for this new moon. It's up on all the platforms that you can check out. It had to be in 2 parts. I noticed a lot of people on YouTube got the first part, but never watched the second part. It was just a recording snafu, and the end of the reading is in part 2. So we're going to talk about the Catalyst Classroom. I'm going to share material about Aldebaran, which you can see here is the eye of the bull, the Hyades star cluster, and its relationship mythologically, relationship to us in terms of archetypes, and then, of course, the starseed lineages from the Hyades, in particular Aldebaran. This is the fixed star related to Archangel Michael, so you may have seen content floating around about Archangel Michael recently. Well, that's because it is the patron representative, and this is the commander of the heavenly armies, right? And so when you charge into battle, whatever that charge is, you have to follow it through. And I think this is where, this window now is where we're at, post eclipse, closing out. And now we're in the new territory and what goes along with it. So I'm going to be talking about all of this at the Catalyst Classroom. If you're interested in this, you can either go to the website, catalystenergies.net, and there will be information for you in many locations in order to access Subscribestar and kind of get an idea. And if you're not interested in subscribing monthly yet, but you are interested in this content because of the subject matter in particular, you are a Gemini, you have Hyades starseed, the plan is to post the replay, a video recording of the replay on Brighteon, and for a small fee if you don't want to subscribe. The monthly subscribers get access to the live Zoom twice a month with all of this content, and then also twice monthly the Starseed Fellowship, which was really awesome, the last one we had, and the replays, the recording of the replays. So just wanted to share that with you before we move on. So I want to show some space weather. So in some ways, it felt like that the initiatory process of this new moon was felt very strongly, okay? So in terms of a consciousness, in terms of, I would say, my physical body. And Venus has moved into Taurus now. So she is back in her home territory. The Empress returns. And I suspect that physical, material sensations, resources, value, intrinsic worth, all of these types of things are going to become much more palpable through us, through our relationships, through the things that matter to us, whether they be, any number of material material, valuable things. That can be anything from our home, our land, our job, our whatever provides income, right? And our relationships, right? Venus in Taurus. But it's about being comfortable, secure, fertile, patient, and the Empress is magnetic. So there's a strong magnetic quality that's going along with Venus and Taurus. So I want to, speaking of which, let's check in about the space weather. First, I want to check in with the chat while I give you some eye candy from the Astronomy Photo of the day. So this was, oops, hold on one second, guys. This, I always do this. Forget that my face is behind the banner. So Emily says, good morning. Hello there. VZ says, good morning. Emily says, our inner world is such an obviously different world than the one that meets the eye. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And, this is a great moment of learning opportunity that Emily in the chat and I have the very down to the same degree of our ascendant. So much of what Pluto is extracting, eliminating, destroying, whatever is happening in the 12th house, which is the house of endings, but it's also the house of the unseen, the house of transcendence. It is the Akash in a lot of ways, and so it's pretty mundane out there for Aquarius people, maybe depending on where your Aquarius fits, but it is a rich and vibrant, and in some cases it's been kind of terrifying inner subconscious realm and multi-dimensional experience. So thank you for sharing that, because that was a great learning moment. So this astronomy photo of the day, astronomypictureoftheday.com. It's linked in the description box below. This is just some beautiful eye candy from a couple days ago in terms of rising to the occasion. But what I wanted to share that just wasn't nearly as photogenic and maybe appealing to the eye in terms of a thumbnail is this. This is today's image for Astronomy Picture of the Day. So you can find that website and link to it, bookmark it, so you can check these every day. And it's got good explanations of what you're looking at, because this is a rocket obviously rising. In occulting the sun. It's not totally hiding it, but it is in the foreground. And rising to the occasion definitely feels a lot more like this image. And because we've already in some ways made the decision with the new moon to charge ahead or to play with danger or challenge nature, whatever it is, which is the nature of a growing consciousness. So oftentimes with the third house, which is the Gemini house in astrology, when you are learning the rules of life, right, by interacting with your siblings or your friends or your cousins or the people that you are in close association with every day, even as an adult, your co-workers, the people that live in your home, whether they be roommates or family members, but it's about the way that you communicate and you interact with the world outside of you. This is your nervous system. So in the third house, it's through all these interactions that we learn about what it means to be a consciousness in a material form, and we push the boundaries a little bit, don't we? And stretch and play with danger and test things and gather more knowledge. And sometimes that means entertaining a perspective that you normally wouldn't. Right? We had a lot of that with the last 2 years with the North Node in Gemini, right? Like being, embracing the division, embracing the polarization, embracing the bifurcation of reality and thoughts. And this, we have a sun in Gemini now. We have the moon in Gemini still right now that will be coming into Cancer. So right now, it definitely feels like we are playing with the polarization and accepting that part of maximizing this ability, right? Mercurial, hermetic, right? We're talking about the realm of the logos, of thoughts and ideas, concepts, our own consciousness. It is the commitment part is inseparable from it. Otherwise, you lead to ruin, which we're going to see is part of the reading that is going to come up. So this Archangel Michael aspect, just like everything else, is going to have two aspects to it, and we're gonna talk about in the Catalyst classroom, how to work with all the different conceptualizations from the Starseed lineage to the mythology to even down to just the archetypal reference how to work with these energies, especially if you are a Hyades starseed, because that's going to give more information about the mission. So rising to the occasion, we're going to have to face some things that, in our commitment to this process, that is going to challenge us, and it may lead to ruin if we want to just cruise through this process. Right, the template is set. Right, sit down and enjoy the show. You got front row seats. This is what you came here for as a starseed and as a soul. All of us did, but that doesn't mean you're going to necessarily not have a visceral reaction to what you're seeing, right? And especially if you're simultaneously a participant and an observer, right? Because that's the real issue at hand here. It's not just about sitting back and waiting or in not participating. It's about participating in the everyday that you are part of as your participation, but at the same time seeing the whole thing unfold. I know it's exhausting, but this is what we signed up for, and this is what God, or source of the Great Spirit, led us to. I mean, we also have been chosen as well as chosen to be here. So rising to the occasion, my friends. So let's look at some of the space weather here to kind of remind ourselves what's been going on. So the first thing I want to share, we saw it, we felt it. Here's the Schumann from Sunday and Monday, especially Monday. And this is roughly, the time that in the time period, the window that the new moon would have been happening. And like I said, I felt it. I felt actual anxiety in my physical body. I went outside and did all my yard work first thing in the morning so that it, besides the fact that it's going to be and has been blazing hot, it's also, I was just like, I need to give this energy somewhere to go and to ground myself. And so you see that even the Schumann resonance was lifting and amplifying really strongly. It's since calmed down today so far. It's still, it's not nearly what it was the last 2 days. So curious how you're feeling. If you felt the anxiety or you felt some sort of upliftment, any type of louder magnetic interaction, because that's what we're looking at, is the frequency of the magnetic field as a result of whatever that planet is doing, right? Her own heartbeat. So we see it here, right? Same thing. You can see it reached up to 50. And this, again, we're looking at 4 p.m. in Russia. So that is about 3 to 5 a.m., right? It's 11 hours from Russian time, 2 p.m. 3 to 5 a.m. You can see that it's got really strong around that time. And then we had the new moon. So I feel like that there was something that kind of, like I said, like clicked into place. So the last piece was being put in, and part of that nosedive or charging into battle is that you can't stop in the middle of it. You have to follow through, and it feels kind of scary and really exciting, but also too, many of us know what that means for many other people. So the planetary index has been pretty stable, right? There hasn't been a lot of really powerful geomagnetic unrest. There certainly has been, but look at all the sunspots are going out of view now. So even the sun's going to quiet down for the most part, at least for the next day. There aren't even any major coronal holes. We see all these magnetic filaments here, right? You see them here, these snaky things, and there's plenty of opportunities for things to turn into holes or to start flaring or turn into sunspots. But for the most part, there's nothing to necessarily expect right now. And you can even see that, I would say, in the astrology for this week, because the big transits that are happening is not until Friday, which is Mercury stations direct at Algol and the Pleiades. We talked about this all in the last Catalyst Classroom. And then not only Saturn stations retrograde, I had to think about that. Saturn station retrograde on the 4th, which is June 4th, right? So June 3rd is Mercury station direct at 26 to 27 degrees Taurus. And then on the 4th, just pretty much directly in a square to that Mercury is Saturn in Aquarius that is stationing retrograde. So I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end when we talk about the astrology. But I've seen some things now in terms of certain areas where there's a lot of social media reference to calm before the storm. I mean, this has been something that we've been talking, that has been part of the, at least some version of the collective consciousness for a while now. But I can see how there was a moment of the full pattern was set and a decision at some collective level was made, and now it's like the momentum is going to start building along the course of this entire lunar cycle. And we actually have a full moon on Flag Day, which is June 14th, at the, let's see, 24 degrees Sagittarius, so getting pretty close to the galactic center. But more importantly, I think, is that it's still within orb of Mintaka, opposite Mintaka in the belt of Orion, and it's also the degree of the fixed star Ras Al Hague, which is the head of the serpent bear. Now, if you're interested in kind of like the more of the symbolic, esoteric read of like what is happening politically, June 14th is also President Trump's birthday. He has his moon at Ras Al Hague. Okay, so that's where the full moon will be. He was also born at a full moon. I don't remember if it was an eclipse or not, but he was born at a Sagittarius full moon at Ras Al Hague, right? So he's having a big return in terms of his own natal chart, our full moon on the 14th. So, and we'll talk about that at the Catalyst Classroom, in terms, again, of the ancient astrology, the fixed star, the head of the serpent bearer. Who is that? What does it represent? So, it feels like there will be crescendoing through June in some ways, but this is the next couple of days feel like an opportunity for the moon to pass through Gemini, right? So we still feeling into the dialectic, feeling into the alternatives, but also moving into Cancer, which is about where our root system is actually planted. Where do we plant the flag? You make the decision, you stick to it. This is where your loyalty lies. This is your family, right? This is your inner core of stability. This is, and this grows down, right? So the moon in Cancer, this is her home territory. So the next couple of days, the feels will be intense. The moon will come into opposition with Pluto, and we will feel again how Pluto retrograde is impacting us emotionally. So knowing where Cancer Capricorn is in your chart. This is also a Pleiadian starseed activation with that, and I'll point it out again when we get closer. So let's go into the reading and see see this intense imagery that is before us here. I'm going to check in with the chat too and see how it's going. Hi, Meow Meg. It's so good to see you. Meg's been with Catalyst from the beginning, and I'm very, very grateful. And feel very blessed by her presence, and also a very good seamstress as well. So I don't know if you're putting any of your stuff up online or doing any projects or anything like that, but I was just thinking how I really need a seamstress like in my life that is willing. I have so many things that need to be repairing, so man, let's make that happen somehow. Okay, I'm bringing up the reading, I promise. There it is. Okay, so what we're gonna see first off is, oh boy, this entire horizontal axis is all reversed. So there's a couple ways you could look at this. You could look at this as a lot of internalized work, right? A lot of the inner shadow. And of course we do have Pluto retrograde, and we are about to have Saturn retrograde, and Mercury is still in its retrograde, but this is not what I'm reading at all. This says to me again that there is a really strong material aspect to what we're experiencing. That is, there's a lot of inversion still. There's a lot of shadow to work through, and I'm experiencing that at the astral level through my dreamscape, through my visitations, right, past life, sojourns. There's stuff that's working itself out within me that I feel like is, wow, there is a lot of very deep trauma that is still finding its way to the surface. Now, the Two of Wands, the Three of Cups, and the Ten of Swords, right? Ruin. also reversed. There's never, the best case scenario for the Ten of Swords always is that, at least the cycle is over. Like it's a new opportunity for a mental trajectory or concepts or the realm of analysis. But in its reversal, I mean, it's kind of like we don't learn anything. I don't really feel like that's the case, but I have a sense here that this is a very difficult journey. But what's surrounding it is really important. I feel like that it gives so much depth and so much support around where we are at energetically in terms of our own root system, and where our attention is focused and what we can be open to in terms of our higher awareness, or our sense of I would say higher awareness, right? Those upper chakras. So, but it's not easy. When you have the Three of Cups reversed like this at the heart of the matter, I mean, it's definitely like, oh shit, I don't got anything, right? Or you have this unquenchable lust, or this raw lust that just cannot be satisfied. So let's go into it though, because I do feel like that there is, I mean, when you talk about somebody's fight, I mean, that was a big ding ding for me is this morning, is to have somebody that I know through association that closely to have their home burned down. It was just like, wow. And you even have the Two of Wands coming before it. So dominion, but in a very reckless or really destructive way. So you see that the dynamic, and this is for lots of people, and it's going to, like I said, it's going to come about in many different ways for people. But that was a pretty obvious, like, hey, pay attention to this, because this is what it's, there appears to be lots of ways that this is going to unfold. And you may not be experiencing it in real time, but somebody close to you may be. And this is going to have a lot to do, how when we get to Archangel Raphael and the Divine Physician, I think that's going to help clear up what we can really put our attention towards. So the Two of Wands, right? Dominion, you can see that these two wands are crossed. And this is a serious power and creative power first manifested. Now, this is Mars and Aries, and this is exactly where Mars is right now. In fact, Mars and Jupiter came into a conjunction on Sunday. Yes, right? Definitely before the new moon. They came into a conjunction with each other at 3 to 4 degrees Aries. And I talked about it on the astrology report, and of course I talked about it on the forecast for Geminis this month, which is that this is about utilizing the polarity within the self, within the creative process, within the subjective experience, right? Now, Aries wants to output. Aries is truly the charge, the electrical charge that's released, the power that's released, the spark that's released. And Mars in Aries, Mars rules Aries. And so there is some sparks flying, right? They're literally, figuratively, that are having an impact. And when it's reversed like this, it can be incredibly reckless. Now, upright, power of creation, energy, the first manifestation following a pure idea, the beginning of transformation. So those things aren't necessarily not happening, but the shadow of this, which is what the reversal really expresses, is destruction and restlessness, right? A lot of us may have felt restless over the weekend, especially close to the new moon, because you're leading up to this moment of charge, right? You're leading up to this moment of committing, right? The nosedive, taking the plunge, so to speak, and destruction, restlessness, revenge is part of a Two of Wands reversed, and shamelessness, right? Like not even caring how your actions impact other people, which can be a very shadowed Mars in Aries. So lots, and this very much could have implications that have to do with being influenced. I mean, this I can really relate to in my own experience in the last 2 days of what I have been witnessing and observing in a much more intuitive and astral space. So the fuckery is about, my friends, and shamelessness really is hitting home with in terms of a larger global sense of what is going on. But at an individual level, it does feel like that this. Remember, this is the material existence that we are part of, and so it is on in some ways, and it could very easily lead to, and is in a lot of ways, this Three of Cups when it's reversed. Now this is great. Mercury in Cancer. This is beautiful, clear water flowing, right? There's no lack of anything. 3 is a number of harmony and synthesis. But this is a mental awareness of what is, something that you can conceptually recognize as, oh, all emotional aspects are fulfilled in this moment. So again, when you look at it reversed at the heart right here, the axis of our spirit and the material world, this can be, in a lot of ways, it just feels kind of like just a lot of sadness and a lot of loss and a lot of grief. Now, in a traditional sense, when you have it shadowed, it can lead to excessiveness, overabundance, raw lust, and greed. And that very well could be the case depending on who you're reading for and what it applies to. But what I feel here is more of just like a letting go and a realization or an experience of not having abundance, losing something that is part of your emotional security as well. And I will say that the full moon that we had in Cancer over the winter, right, when there was the Capricorn, conjunction with Pluto, if you remember that, and it was opposite full moon in Cancer at that degree, that was, at least in my experience here, I can feel, I had my own visions around what this would look like. And it was literally something coming and hooking up to my home and pulling it away very suddenly. And every time the moon comes around into its opposition with Pluto, there's likely something that you touch upon. And this will be no different this week in just the next couple of days. But that full moon with Pluto in tow showed us exactly, and it very much was this in its reversal, like, oh, and this is not to scare anybody, right? This is about, we can't cruise through this process. We can't bypass it in any way. We make a decision, or we decide to not make a decision, which is still a decision. And we have to still be a passenger on this plane that is nosediving. So, but I do get this sense here that at the heart. And so you feel it, even if it's not happening to you directly. It's still something that we're all going to be experiencing at this level, because there's no getting away from everything impacting everything else as part of our transition into fourth and fifth density. That is the other side of it, is that the bifurcation of material and spiritual in the fifth is non-existent, right? It's a continuous rhythmic process that's happening all the time. So you do feel everything, and it immediately manifests based on what you're feeling. So, but right here in the third, we're still living this process of going through the transition. And I can tell that I just feel like there is a sense of loss and grief with this Three of Cups reversed. Even if it's not happening to you, you can easily tap into it if you so choose to like be a participant in this process. And as a starseed, I sure hope so, because that's what you're here to do. Not to say that you have to be a superhero and go out and like do anything. It's just the presence, but you have to be intentional with your presence as well. So Three of Cups. Now, where are we rooted? Where can we be rooted? Where is our energetic root? What's going on in the subconscious even? Well, here's our King of Scrolls. I mean, what a great avatar in some ways of the new moon in Gemini, right? And so the King is a court card. It represents us or actual people in our lives, somebody that we can, visually or physically be like, oh, this is representative of this person, even if it's us, right? To embody in some ways this identity or this archetype. So the King of Scrolls is, he's a man of learning, right? And there is lots of wisdom through his studies that we can pick up on, right? So you could see that there are a lot of scrolls. He's got one tucked under his arm, and he's thinking, right? You know, he's not making snap decisions. He's certainly not Mars and Aries. He is really thinking. Now, he has this protection around him. Now, think of Cancer as the, you know, this garden, large fence around him that protects him, but he has full range of the entire landscape, and that's what he's doing, is looking off based on all of the information that he's been accumulating already. So it's kind of like make your decision, or at least have the objective perspective, this man of learning, someone that is open to be, you know, is open to guidance, right? This person can lead you in new directions. This might be someone in your life. And it does represent a longing for deeper understanding and greater clarity of thought and discovery. And so this person is truly open to all of these things, right? He understands his place. He is willing to do the work. And he also recognizes that there is a consideration that needs to happen and that he is not going to make a hasty decision. So when we get to the guidance around it, you're going to see that there's so much about the discovery and realizing that it's time to move on to a new, you know, not so much a new, it's making the commitment to where this is going, like consciously, if that makes sense. So, because what we do see, unfortunately, well, let's look at Raphael first. So in terms of our attention outward, our attention in our conscious awareness, right? Where our focus is in terms of our voice and our vision and our connection to source. You know, the Archangel Raphael is a pretty simple character, but is the royal fixed star and archangel of, represented by Regulus, the star Regulus. This is the lion, the constellation of Leo. And so interesting that Raphael would be so not obviously what he is, right? He's just a person with this, you know, heart chakra that is pink and beautiful and has the green orb. Like, there's just a lot of heart chakra here. There's a lot of healing. There's miracles. There's blessings that come along with this. This is about having the open heart. Again, this is part of a larger theme here, about not losing sight of who we are, even in the face of feeling grief and loss and all of, you know, or coming to realize that we are, that there are aspects that are not abundant. And in fact, we may feel that we are losing that support or that abundance. So when you take all of these things out of the equation, other than the cause and effect, you can see how it would get to ruin, especially with the Ten of Swords being ruled by the sun in the third decan of Gemini. So we got some time to go with the sun. It's only moving into the second decan of Gemini. So Archangel Raphael, this really does suggest that we're looking for healing, that we are not even just being open to healing, maybe recognizing the need to have these energies around us. We may be aware that are other helpful people attending to us. We may find renewal of a lost dream or healing or something to that effect. I got the sense that this is a call in a lot of ways, like an openness for this healing energy or this blessed energy, miracles, this helpfulness in some way to come in, and to acknowledge that it might be out of our hands in terms of what type of healing or what type of miracles or blessings are bestowed. But I do get the sense that there's an openness and a willingness and a focus here as well. And when we talk about what's around it, you'll see, I feel like it'll make more sense in terms of why we're focused here. What benefit or use is it going to be focusing here when there's so much grief and possible destruction and a sense of just hopelessness that comes with the Ten of Swords reversed? I mean, there's no doubt about that. Now, it's ruin, right? You've come to the end of the line. There is only so much analysis that you can do before there's a complete loss of hope, right? You can't get caught in the sixth house, which is Virgo and analysis. If you get caught in the sixth house over and over, you never come into relationship. It's the whole point that we're here, right? This is the means in which we realize and spiritually transmute is through our actual relationships with each other. So if you get caught in the feedback loop of endless analysis, you're kind of like that hermit that is truly not socially capable anymore, because they can't come out into society, into the social order, and you just get stuck in a feedback loop, and that will lead to a complete loss of hope. And there's lots of things that can happen with a complete loss of hope. The light of this card ultimately is that wisdom comes through pain and loss. Now, we have a shadow with its reversal as well. So basically that there is no wisdom that can be gained through this pain and loss. There's ruin, there's loss, there's destruction, there's separation, there's pain, there's catastrophe, right? There is a sense of hopelessness. This is what happens when you just want to, you think that taking a nosedive means that you are going to feel the same as if you are at cruising altitude, right? I don't feel like that there is any cruising altitude at this moment if you are fully engaged in, Project Earth Ascension, whatever. But this may not necessarily be about you, right? This is about the horizontal or cause and effect relationship. Now, realize that we're going somewhere new, right? And that many people are going to find themselves in a feedback loop and feeling helpless and hopeless and not really learning anything about, you're not actually learning or transmuting or even coming to understand all of this information that's been collected from their own journey, right? Just getting caught in a feedback loop. So when we look at the King of Scrolls, that could, if we're reversed, I'd say that is absolutely part of the conversation, is getting caught in one's own mental feedback loop, right? Or if we saw the Four of Scrolls, the trench, right? But this is suggesting here that you could see the King of Scrolls is looking out. The lookout, literally, number 17, literally looking out, also has this indigo shirt on, up in the crow's nest, right? Get your third eye open here and see out what, beyond the dumpster fire that is below us, because we know that is absolutely already in play, right? There's not going to be a dumpster fire. It is just part of this process of coming into convergence with with the whole pattern that is now set. And what's interesting? I feel like that the Saturn in retrograde is going to be the time frame where we really feel that pattern within us, right? It's going to be unyielding and very uncomfortable. But if we have this perspective of the lookout, right, number 17, that is that's related to Aquarius, that's related to the letter Q, right, this lookout, right, and it's not so much to be able to see the future, but to be able to look at the whole pattern rather than, but not lose sight of the fact that there's a dumpster fire under you, right? You can't just be oblivious to this. I mean, you can, but look at what this leads to, if you are. So, and considering it a new adventure. This is what the emo is really teaching us in this, in terms of the shamanic animal messages here. It's a good time to go on a new adventure, right? Maybe it's time to really change perspective here. But I also, let me look at my notes because there was something. So the lookout does show that we know we're in a challenging situation. We could experience a sudden fall or loss of position. It's important that we make up a backup plan. We've been talking about this, especially in terms of the economy and food, right? That to be prepared for. It's important to keep your balance and not to lose it while this is happening, and to trust yourself and your own strength to carry you through, right? And Saturn in Aquarius, I feel like, is a good its retrograde is really going to establish that for ourselves. But the emo is more about trusting your instincts and your intuition to guide you. Rather than trying to conceptualize how you're going to do this, you're starting to rely on your instincts in terms of when it's time to pull back or pull that plane up. Heed the call to go on a new adventure. And it's really important that you first believe it's possible before you can even, that's where you start. And it may come from out of necessity, but the King of Scrolls is willing to has an open mind and wants to discover that which hasn't been discovered yet, wants to come to new ideas, new conceptualizations, and is willing to keep an open mind. And this is, I feel like, again, going on a new adventure. I think that's really important to consider in terms of our own energetic route here in this reading. So the manatee... Now, this is where it gets interesting in terms of Archangel Raphael. First, you have accept the situation as it is rather than fighting to change it, right? Which is lay down the sword because this isn't the battle. And that's really difficult to kind of maintain that perspective when we are going through, even today, where the sun is still in conjunction with the star Aldebaran, right? This isn't, this is in the Bhagavad Gita, what Arjuna tried to do was lay down the sword. So, it's very interesting to have this message, right? But we can choose peace of mind in terms of this healing aspect. And what I see here with the divine physician as well, being reversed, is that, again, I feel like that there's a lot that we want to, we really do want to offer healing to people and to be... and to be open to this type of healing or a miracle. Let's just be clear here. Like, it seems like it's going to take a miracle for us to get to this singular convergence point without, all of us, the entire planet not being impacted. But I do get the sense that this is really about surrendering to the Great Spirit and to spirit in general in terms of the healing process. It does suggest when it's reversed that we've lost touch with our own healing and lost touch with how our thoughts and our emotions in particular impact this process. But I think that there's something very much about receiving, right? And I think that this is a big part of the message here, because she's receiving, but he is clearly giving here, and he's got the bucket, and I've never been able to figure out what's in the belt here, but he's obviously doing the heart. Archangel Raphael having the pink color related to the heart chakra, often related to the heart chakra, as well as green. The fact that there is this really clear Reiki healing happening at the heart, and then the well in the bucket, which is actually very connected to the Hyades starseed clusters and the stars, the prominent stars in that cluster. There is a very specific degree about the well. So primordial trust. I think that there is a sense that we have to do it all. Excuse me. Or feeling responsible for other aspects of healing. What I get from this entire complex up here is to release the need to control this situation and maybe be open to the divine healing, the spiritual healing. Maybe we have to kind of set the space again in order for this to come forward. And that's something that we've been talking about for a while here. There's a certain amount of just having to let go and let God, so to speak, in this situation. And like I said, in terms of the fact that we have all of this really intense energy with Archangel Michael, he's not in this reading, okay? And I'm not suggesting that he should have shown up necessarily, but it's a pretty distinct not here. And in fact, everything other than the King of Scrolls here, fire and the Ten of Swords and even the Lookout, which is fire, right? There's a lot of the fire part, and it's important that we keep some of the swords part too. And in fact, where Uranus is situated right now is exactly how do we actually be present in the now moment of our intellect and objective consciousness and the fire of our spiritual will and creativity. That's the challenge right now. And I think that this will there is so much that we can just let go of and allow ourselves to receive our own healing right now, to keep us from feeling hopeless. I would say that there is such a distinct possibility for this, and as June unfolds in particular. So we'll be talking about all of the lunations that are relevant, and certainly the astrology leading up to our solstice that's happening on the 21st, as well. So let's look at the chart actually for this time period, at least for today. So, because there's a couple things that I want to, let's see here. A couple things I would love to point out in this process for today. So, ding ding, here we go. Today's the 31st. I'm actually going to check in, make sure that the stream is still going. Excellent. Okay, guys. So here is today's chart. And like I said, the big deals this week in terms of major transits are Mercury stationing retrograde on Friday the 3rd, Mercury stationing direct in conjunction with Algol, the fixed star Algol, and the Pleiades, both longitudinally at 26 to 27 degrees. You can see that Mercury is kind of slowing down, getting ready to station, so it's sitting at that degree now. And so it's going to station direct on Friday and will come out of shadow sometime in June after it passes into the 4 to 5 degree mark of Gemini. So we still are covering territory with a new set of eyes, maybe a squeegeed third eye in some ways when Mercury stations direct. So important to remember, we're still not into truly new territory yet. It'll be interesting to see Mercury when it reaches Aldebaran in its own transit, what that shows us. But in the meantime, the moon is going to be, today at least, is going to be in a square to Neptune and at the same time in a trine to Saturn, which you can see here with these, with the blue line, right? The blue line and this bold red line. So this is about stripping everything down to its basic essence, right? It's the bare trees in the wintertime against the landscape of snow, where it's nothing but the tree naked against the empty snow-covered landscape, right? You are stripping everything down to its essential nature at 25 to 26 degrees Gemini. So while Neptune is still in its direct motion, it will be stationing retrograde at the end of June, right? And I always feel like Neptune retrograde is actually like when the fog clears in a lot of ways. So we'll see if that's still the case. That's always been my experience, at least. And then you have the time to really work on what is going on within in terms of the transcendent and spiritual experience that Neptune represents. But it's much more like, everybody's got their own pathway, and when there's a new moon, it's each individual life form or each individual seed is going to have the opportunity to grow into its own unique life form or essence, but it's all one and the same, right? That's what Neptune, especially in Pisces, is representing. So with the moon there, I feel like the square today, because it's going to happen much later today, as you see, and this is almost 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. So much of today, this moon moving through Gemini is going to have very minor aspects to things, but it's not till later that it's going to be in a challenge to Neptune in Pisces with this mutable square, but also this trine to Saturn, where they're about to, that's about to station retrograde this week, so it's also slowing down. It's in a position where it is activating the Orion and Pleiadian starseeds, one in resonance and one in square. And this is, they're going to be in a square. Well, Saturn and Mercury retrograde will be in a square with each other just about as they are shifting gears as well at the end of the weekend. So that's something to consider as well. These two planetary energies changing direction at essentially the same time, and essentially within a degree, a square to each other. And so the story, the Pleiadian story in square to the Orion story, which has many overtones, right? Atlantis is one of the bigger ones, but it's still relevant now. This is something that we talk about actually in the Starseed Fellowship, and certainly as we go through the Catalyst Classroom, and definitely in your one-on-one readings as a Starseed. So this square, though, is going to really exemplify, what these two aspects and how they challenge each other. But in the meantime, the moon... this is a moment here where we can acknowledge within ourselves, like really feel into the essential archetypal nature of our own polarization, right? Our own dialectic, our own inner polarity with the moon in Gemini being very strongly in this air trine, allowing for a stabilization in terms of ideas and concepts. There's our King of Scrolls right there, especially as a Saturn in terms of leadership and confidence and a sense of unyielding, like scaffolding in 25 to 26 degrees of Aquarius. Testing the equipment. Does the battery have enough moisture to hold, to function properly, right? Is it going to be able to hold the charge or the power? Is it going to be able to store the energy in a lot of ways? And so it's going to, if we continue, it's just like the Ten of Swords, right? If we are caught in a feedback loop of information, ideas, constant researching, and not to say those things aren't important, they absolutely are, but if we get caught in the loop, right? If we get caught in the loop and don't realize or recognize within us the essential nature of polarization and what its potential is, if we get caught in that loop, then I feel like, we're not going to have. But Saturn will make it clear to us in this trine, because if we are caught up in all of the, things that are stacked on top of what this essential nature is within us, then I feel like Saturn is going to be very clear with us in terms of, the establishment, structure, a sense of security and groundedness and authority. It's going to be like, nope, we need to go back and do it again, right? Or you need, in terms of our own inner realm, is it going to, or can we hold truly? And I think that means we have to strip everything down to the bare essentials within us in terms of this polarization. Now, Jupiter and Mars actually were a big part of how to work with this energy in terms of the charge, in terms of the spark of creation, in terms of the fire of the wands, our spiritual energy. And these two in a conjunction, right? They really they flipped the switch and really got it going in terms of working within ourselves, right? Utilizing the polarization by not pushing away the outside world, but being in a dynamic relationship, but to be processing or working with one's own polarity in relation to the outside world, as opposed to being in polarity with the outside world, if that makes sense. Because this is going to be part of how we move forward and decide who we are and what we actually want, right? If we stay in the dialectic, if we don't come out of the battle, right? And I think this is what the manatee is really trying to say. Like, there is so much... there's only so much fighting that we can do before we get caught in a loop, right? And the whole point of it is to transmute. That is where our soul evolves, is in spiritual transmutation. And part of that in Earth School, and as a starseed in particular, is to learn what that actually means and the mechanisms for how to actually do it. And so a lot of starseeds, I feel like, at least in my experience, I feel like have done, there aren't many that are my experience is there aren't many who haven't had at least a handful of human incarnations already in order to prepare for this particular time. So, but it's still strong, old souls that have evolved in other places, other dimensions that are coming here as well. So that's the whole point of being here. I totally lost why I went into that, but it seemed really important to explain and that I think that really also fits into the whole story around why we're even here as star seeds. It's not to just like coast by necessarily at all. It's about being part of this process, hook, line, and sinker, right? And to be a conscious participant the entire way with all of the experiences of being human in this process. So, like I said, the big ones this week are Mercury and Saturn. They're going to be switching gears. They're in a square to each other. Mercury's going to station direct. Okay, so with the Sun in Gemini during this time, it's going to really, the mind's going to really start turning on, moving, wanting to be engaged mentally, engaged at a informational level, engaged at a conceptual level, and wanting to manifest, wanting to get into the conversations, wanting to actually reach out beyond ourselves, wanting our third eyes to open. So Uranus is definitely the training ground in some ways, because it is in the constant changing and shifting of the landscape that we are always brought back to the now. Be here now, right? And to work with the only thing that is really going to free us, which is the working with the distilled polarity within us, whatever it is, right? And Uranus is the agent of our collective awakening. And so, yeah, it's really hard. It's very difficult to be the Buddha under the Bodhi tree and be haunted, right? To be haunted seems like the right word, and not like a ghost is haunting you, but exactly that, right? Whatever our traumas are, whatever our collective issues are, whatever is unresolved within us is coming out. And even if that's just holding space for it or how we respond to it, it's still part of it. This is really what's going to carry us through. This capacity to do this polarization, this inner polarization, I feel like is really going to be what carries us through the process of like, okay, well, we're committing now, and we're going to play it out. And that's how it goes. So, there will be, like I said, the moon's going to be moving through Cancer, and then moving into Leo, and then we're going to have a first quarter moon on the, let's see, it's going to be the 7th of June. We have a first quarter moon in Virgo, actually. So by that point, through the first quarter leading up to this first quarter square, crisis in action, right? It's going to be, do we continue to indulge and identify with the dialectic of Gemini, or or do I work on analyzing from a feeling or intuitive perspective? So that'll be something that we'll talk about at the Astrology Report at the end of the week. So, my friends, I'm going to check in with the chat here, see if there are any questions, any comments. Thank you guys so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I think I am going to leave it here for today's Starseed Ministry. If you're interested in reading, if you're interested in energy work to support your process, if you're interested in the Starseed Fellowship or the Catalyst Classroom, and both of them, as a subscriber to the Catalyst Classroom, you get all of those benefits. You can find everything you need in the description box below. Okay, guys? I love you. Thank you for being here. Truly, as a starseed, as a human on Earth right now, thank you for being here, because you are here you are here to be part of this incredible process, which is not easy. And I feel like we're getting the input right now that yep, it's time now, and we will accept and accept the mission, success or failure, I guess is the best way to put it. So and being aware of your starseed lineages, being aware of your evolution in terms of your soul work, you know, through astrology, through evolutionary astrology, all these things are really important. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so much. I'll see you tomorrow on the Catalyst Classroom, and have a great week, everyone. Bye.